Hello and welcome to the Telltale podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Goldsmith, and today I'm here with the lovely Gladys. Gladys is a Vogue editor, content editor, and today we are going to be talking all about her story and her journey, and she's going to be sharing some amazing tips, tricks, everything. I'm super keen to have her on, so please welcome Gladys to the podcast.
Hello, Kayla. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. My first question for you is tell us a little bit about yourself for some more background, because obviously I didn't really delve into that in that little short spiel. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, at the moment, I'm working just as a content editor at Vogue Australia and GQ and Vogue Living mainly. And basically at uni, I did arts law, majoring in art history and history. So I didn't really end up in an industry that had any direct relationship with what I did in university. But I just kind of discovered a love of writing, jumped into that, and now I'm here. What else about me? I love the F1. I box every now and then. I'm considering whether or not to get into a fight, but my trainer's being very insistent about that. I'm resisting him on it for now, but I feel like he might convince me soon.
Wow.
I'm still fielding for opinions on that.
Sure.
And read and draw. That's me.
Beautiful. I love that. And what do you kind of love to read? I'm quite interested. Like, what are your favorite types of maybe of books to read, or articles, or are there any certain like authors that you love? And do those kind of influences have a direct influence on your writing?
Yeah, sure. So I am a huge classics fiction nut. I think I've read maybe Pride and Prejudice every year since I was 9 years old. So I am Jane Austen's biggest fan.
Yep.
I wouldn't be who I am right now with Elizabeth Bennet. She shaped my entire worldview. Aside from that, I am a huge Lord of the Rings fanatic. Love Tolkien, also read him pretty much every year. Love F. Scott Fitzgerald. I love a lot of poetry, so a lot of like Virginia Woolf,
Beautiful.
Sylvia Plath, classic moody sad girl prose. And at the moment, because I'm really feeling the moody sad girl prose, I'm reading a lot of Joan Didion. So yeah, they come highly recommended from me, especially the Tolkien and his entire Elvish universe.
No, for sure. I think those are some of the beautiful classics and canonical texts that, I don't know, there's just so much to gain, I guess, from that writing and from those incredible authors. And yeah, it's really cool that those are your inspirations.
The classics, I often feel like time has often been just like almost like a sorter. It comes with the knowledge that, you know, over the period of like 100 years or so, we have just collectively decided that these texts are good.
Yeah.
So I've just gone back through the list and just been like, okay, like I wonder why we're still interested in these texts like a century on. And there's always a nugget in there somewhere.
Definitely. When you were younger, what careers kind of did you envision yourself pursuing later on in life? Because obviously the trajectory of your career was quite different from what you initially, I guess, were potentially interested in from your degree choice. So I'd love to kind of hear how that changed and what the process was behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first career I ever wanted was to be an artist, actually. I have all of these letters that I wrote to myself when I was like 5 or 6. You're going to be an artist in Paris and you're just going to paint landscapes and live the rest of your life like in the European cobblestones. And I think I just realized that wasn't too feasible when I was maybe about 12 or 13. And then I decided maybe I was going to be an author, fielded that around for a bit. And then during high school, this idea really crystallized of being a historian or an art historian or a curator, because I loved museums, I loved art galleries. I got really into this idea of like, oh my gosh, like what if I help the Greeks get the Parthenon marbles back from the British Museum? Like that was really my goal. And I wrote this major work in the final year of high school and like had to present it. I was like, yes, like this is exactly how we get the Parthenon marbles back to Greece. So then I jumped into uni majoring in art history and history with that intention of going into that, they call it like the glam sector. And I did law as well, but I kind of knew from the beginning I wasn't going to be a lawyer, even though I did keep an open mind to it. Really enjoyed criminal law, really enjoyed just like international law, but I don't know, I felt like I maybe needed something a little bit more creative, because the nature of the law is that, you know, it is meant to be rigid and hard to push. You're meant to write in a particular way that is so legalistic sometimes that it's really elusive and it's obscure. And it's a great intellectual challenge, but I don't think it was something that I personally wanted to do. I kind of wanted to work in a field with a little bit more creative liberty. So at some point in uni, I just decided, well, I love writing and I've always wanted to be an author of some kind. I've always wanted to publish a book. Why don't I just make writing the career? And then it just had this kind of brainwave, and then jumped into trying out journalism, and now I'm here.
Yeah, it's such an interesting story, and I'm quite like interested to know as well in terms of you know, the fact that you went into the law degree without really wanting to pursue law, but you were kind of enjoying the challenge and the opportunity that it was presented to you. How did you find kind of navigating, I guess, the social aspect of university and seeing potentially like your peers going into law positions or vying for these big positions? Did you ever feel pressure to kind of move into that area, or were you always kind of really like hell-bent on pursuing your writing career and what you wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was definitely difficult. I mean, just the fact of being or feeling like you're the only one who wants to do something different in a pool of people in a really vocational degree that can often seem quite linear, and people who are set on, you know, getting a summer internship and then a clerkship and then eventually working as a grad and then eventually climbing up to being associate or a partner. All of that kind of dialogue, when it's so pervasive, when it's everywhere, can make you feel like you're, you know, quote unquote, making a mistake or doing something that you shouldn't be. And I definitely struggled a lot with that in uni. Like, I loved everyone who was in my cohort, but sometimes just the assumption that everyone was heading in the same direction really makes you feel quite unstable. And it took a lot of, I think, concerted effort for me to stick to my guns and really be honest with myself about what I wanted and not feel pressured in any way. Really thinking to myself, you know, I'm on my own path, I am my own person, this truly is what I'm interested in, and this perhaps is not quite me. And it is a difficult thing to realize, because it is almost the easier path to just get swept up by the degree and let it take you wherever. But I think having that honest conversation with yourself about whether this is actually something you want and whether it's something that'll make you happy in the long term is really key.
Definitely. I think that's great advice, and even for myself personally, because I am studying an arts law degree, and I'm kind of figuring out as I'm going whether it's what I want to do. I definitely am interested in things like policy and that aspect of the law, but in terms of like the traditional, maybe like most popular like corporate law that a lot of people go into, that I'm not sure if that's for me. And then I have things like my podcast and media that I'm really interested in, so it's definitely figuring out like what I want, and
100%,
and having to kind of just on that.
No, I think if I have any advice, it's to do exactly what you're doing now, which is keep your options open. Like, even if you don't feel like you want to do a law degree, going in there with an open mind of thinking, oh, okay, maybe something in here, maybe a particular course will convince me that maybe being a solicitor is for me, or working in this particular field. So let yourself be persuaded if you come across evidence that's compelling enough. So I think going into my degree, I kind of felt like maybe I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I was also willing to be persuaded otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing now is so important, is opening up yourself to so many different opportunities, never letting a single one pass you by, saying yes to everything, trying everything out, even though it, even if it ends up being the worst thing you've ever done, and you come away with that certainty of, yeah, that's absolutely not for me, and maybe I'll do something else.
For sure, definitely. And I think that applies with anyone who's pursuing a kind of tertiary degree. I think a lot of the times we see people completely change, what they want to do and their careers along the way. And I think it's perfectly normal and valid. And I don't know, I feel like it needs to be normalized more, because there's this idea that you kind of have to know what you want to do at a certain point. And I just don't think that that's always realistic. So I think you're definitely a testament to that.
I think I absolutely agree with you. I think that we need to normalize the idea of having different interests in life, like not even just in uni. People switch careers when they're 35, 47, 62. And that's just human nature. We narrow in on something that we like, we want to try something out, and that's the beauty of life. Like,
definitely,
what do we do here if we're not following what we want and narrowing in on what we love, when finding things that we're passionate about is such a rare and beautiful thing? Like, don't let that pass you by.
100%.
Yeah.
So we kind of covered, why you chose the arts law degree and majoring in art history. So I'm quite interested to know, was this decision solely a personal one, particularly the law aspect of it, or was it influenced in any way? Because I feel like in some respect, some people are kind of tentative to pursue arts degrees. It's just this kind of stigma around arts degrees that I think is so negative, to be honest, but unfortunately it is there, and some people do pair it with law occasionally or another subject to kind of avoid the stigma that might be associated with it. And I was wondering if that was something that you felt when you were pursuing that degree, or was it completely a personal choice to do it?
Absolutely. I think, to be honest, it probably wasn't entirely a personal choice. I think if I had the option, I probably would have just done an arts degree, because that was what I loved. But when you're 18 and you have no clue what's going on, I mean, like, now I'm 23, I still have no clue what's going on. But when you're 18 and you have extra no clue what's going on, you are influenced by all of this discourse around you that says you have to bolster your arts degree with something else. Why, if you've got the ATAR that you have, why aren't you opening yourself up to doing a double degree? Why aren't you doing it for job security, or just that extra safety net, is what a lot of people like to say. And I think, looking back on it, I don't regret it at all. I loved my law degree. I loved studying it, and maybe I was just by nature a bit too argumentative not to do a law degree. Like, I think it probably really suited me. But I think there is a little bit of a myth there that there is this kind of extra, career safety net that comes with the degree. It definitely opens a lot of doors, but I mean, it's just as hard finding a career in law as it is a career in arts. And I think that just by nature, we live in a world where success is incredibly quantitative, right? We have a very, again, like, linear, measured way of viewing what is successful, what makes something valuable, what makes something worthy. And that is, so anathema to how arts views the world. The value that arts put into the world is something that is by nature not measurable. It is an emotional thing. It is an inquisitive thing. It is a curious thing. It seeks to explain, our relationship with the people around us, not really, something that is really tangible, like maybe corporate law, or if you go into banking, or if you go into medicine. And there is a real stigma about it. I think if I had anything to say to anyone who wanted to do just an arts degree, is just do an arts degree. Like, that is so valid, and you shouldn't have to go through your uni life justifying the fact that you've just chosen this degree. Everyone does single degrees. Why does having an arts degree make it any different? And if that's what you're interested in and what you're passionate about, then do it. The influence that arts has in the world is pervasive. Arts shapes everything that we do, but people are so willing to negate the fact that, oh, when they're reading someone's actually written it, or when they walk past an advertisement, someone's actually built it,
Yeah.
or when they're listening to a speech, someone's actually planned it. Like, there are lots of ways that art touches our lives that people don't notice because they can't see it numerically. So just really remind yourself that what you're doing is valuable and it is valid and it's necessary.
100%. That's honestly so profound. Like, I really agree with that. The fact that you can't see it, and for that reason people choose to ignore it. I think it's such a big kind of thing. And I feel as well with an arts degree, or any degree in general, it's not always about the degree that you choose. It's also about the way that you use that degree, or the things that you do with that degree. I think
Absolutely.
you can even, go into maybe a degree like law or medicine that's, kind of viewed as more of a safe option, I guess, and not even be able to find a job in that respect. But you could choose a master's degree and know exactly where you're heading and exactly what you want to do and create something for yourself. That's something you're passionate about as well. And I think, yeah, it's such a missed opportunity. And there's so many, I think, people that are swept up in other degrees that are low key, they have that ambition to pursue an arts degree, but maybe pressure from family or pressure from, the stigma around it has prevented them from doing it. And I guess that's a really big loss to the art sector and the art that could be out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I talk to so many people who have done other degrees that have now reached a point in their life where they're thinking, like, maybe I should have done something that was a little bit more true to myself, or they've gone midway through a degree and realized maybe that's not really where their interests lie, but they'll see it through and commit to it because that's the path that they're on now. And I think that kind of inflexibility is, I mean, it's not damaging, but you also don't want to embrace that. If your heart is saying, I really want to explore this field or this discipline, then just do it. Just take that leap of faith. And yeah, absolutely, I think there's this almost mirage of prestige that is attached to particular degrees that definitely influences a lot of people.
Definitely.
And I mean, it's hard to see through that, but sometimes you just need to be brave and, again, really be honest with what you want.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of moving into, your university studies and career and your career as well. Were you juggling any jobs during your university studies, and how did these kind of shape, I guess, your career? Because I feel like the jobs that you do along the way can also affect where you choose to go later on. Because it's not only about, your degree, for instance, it's also about the experience that you build along the way. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear.
Yeah, totally. So I still juggle some side jobs. So I have been an English tutor for about 6 years now, and I did that all the way through uni. So just, helping your typical anxious HSC Year 11 kid write their essays, and sometimes dabble in like history and art as well. Sometimes public speaking, so it varies. It just depends on what they'd like to have lessons in. So that was kind of my main job all the way throughout uni, was just meeting up with kids, helping them write essays, being really passionate about books. And then I did a lot of jobs as well in art galleries. So I think in the first, actually for the entirety of my university life, I was juggling just like random jobs here and there, saying yes to things. I worked in an art auctioneer house for a little bit, and then I worked in the archives at the AGNSW, kind of helping the archivist Stephen there sort through photographs and just talking to him and working in the library, and it was really lovely. And then after that, I bumped into Edwina McCann, our editor-in-chief, at a talk, and we just had a little conversation, and I think I mentioned that I was having like an existential crisis and that I didn't really know what to do. She's like, oh, that's classic. You should just try interning here, or like interviewing for an internship. So I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. And I walked into the office, sat down for an interview, and had an internship. Interned at Vogue for a year alongside uni and alongside tutoring, and also alongside working at the art gallery.
Wow, a lot.
A lot. And then after that, I dabbled in freelancing for them, and then that eventually turned into a full-time job.
Wow. And that internship, what did
Mm.
that actually involve? What did it entail? Because at the early stage, you're probably not jumping straight into the nitty-gritty stuff.
Yeah.
How was that kind of how did you kind of ease your way into the role?
So I actually, and I don't think I can speak on kind of behalf of all interns who have walked through the offices
for sure.
at Vogue. I was thrown really into the deep end.
Oh,
I
wow.
remember my first day so clearly. I walked into the office, I sat down, and the head of brand at the time, Danny, gave me, I think, 3 seconds to log on, and she was like, I want you to do a review of the Louis Vuitton resort show now.
Oh, wow.
And I said, okay. And I just had nothing. I had my laptop, I had like Microsoft Word up, because I don't even know if Google Docs existed at the time. And then I was like, okay, sure. So I so vividly remember writing up this review of the show that they did in the airport, and then publishing it, and then seeing my byline and being like, what world have I just walked into?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was like a test. I actually have not talked to any other interns about their first day. But I think it went well, because then from that point onwards, they kind of just started giving me random things to write, and I just write it up. And what the internship really was about honing that balance between speed and accuracy and quality. And when I say balance, everything needs to be 100%, which is really tough to do in the space of digital journalism. So I think that internship was really valuable for me, because it taught me how to walk that tightrope. The pressure of having a deadline that is so immediate, and not, it's at the end of the semester, I'll do it the night before, but you would really prefer if you wrote this in 2 hours. It's like, okay, sure, 2,000 words in 2 hours, that's
easy,
no biggie. Easy peasy. So it was that, but also, not gonna lie, it was a lot of waiting around. It was a lot of menial tasks. It was a lot of writing about things that I had no clue about, and I had to go out of my way to research and really learn about it. It was a huge learning curve, and I love embracing the idea of being the dumbest person in the room. Like, as kind of frank as that sounds, is coming into a room with the knowledge that everyone in that room has something to teach you, and that there are so many things you don't know. And that openness really, I think, makes you a little bit more vulnerable. It really humbles you as well, and makes you appreciate even the smaller things. I think with any internship, I'm sure the journalism landscape has changed since then, but you're going to be asked to do really weird things, like write about there were so many random like celebrity babies that I wrote about, and I had no clue who the parents were. I had no clue who this baby was. I was like, oh, this baby's a weird name, I guess I have to write 400 words about it. But there are those things that you might not be passionate about, but on a professional level, someone on the other end is going to be reading it. Someone on the other end is going to be enjoying it, and at the end of the day, that's your job. So you have to balance that. You have to balance the stuff that you're passionate about. And I think the internship was so valuable in that way. You just walked in, you had no clue what the day was going to look like, incredibly spontaneous, and it was great, and just left at 5, and there you were. And then I was off to my other job. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, a lot, definitely. And I'm quite interested, because I feel like Vogue it's more than a fashion magazine or a media kind of entity, and I think it kind of can sometimes be narrowed into that lens. But the work that you kind of created with the magazine or the company, what kind of areas have you been able to dabble in? Because I mean, obviously we talked about the baby example, the Louis Vuitton, but I'm sure there's a lot more that you've had the opportunity to cover. So I'd love to hear like the places you've gotten to go with your writing.
Absolutely. So I think, first of all, I am just incredibly privileged to be part of a team that is so open to my ideas. Every writer on the team gets given just an absurd amount of creative autonomy, and everyone there is so open and willing to nurture each other as writers and as people. So I don't think really there's ever been an idea that I've pitched that has been turned down ever.
Wow.
And that is such a privilege, and I'm like very keenly aware of it every time I kind of like log in and talk to my team. So my writing has taken me pretty much everywhere. Like there'll be definitely days when some random celebrity gives birth and I have to write about it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, there are those days, but then there are days when I have to write about the Taliban taking over Afghanistan again, or write a piece on, you know, vaccine hesitancy and scroll through like Nature and compile peer-reviewed journals and talk about the vaccine through a scientific lens.
Wow.
And then there are other days where I watch a film that I really love and I think I really want to write an opinion piece on it. So then I just go ham and I write an essay on why this particular part of the film meant so much to me. I think one of the pieces that I still look back so fondly on was I pretty much am in love with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I have watched everything that she's ever done, read everything she's ever written. Oh, what a queen, what a queen.
Literally.
And I was rewatching Fleabag, and then I just said to my team, I kind of want to do a retrospective on Fleabag because it's just the best show that I've ever watched. And they were like, okay, go ahead. So then I just wrote that.
That's
and
amazing.
then when Fashion Week rolls around, you write a lot of fashion reviews. So what you do is, you know, at Australian Fashion Week, when you're lucky enough to sit in the space, you look at the clothes and you go back and you analyze it like it's a work of art. You pick up on your fashion references, you create connections between this collection and the next, or even, you know, just reference from like 100 years ago. And when it's international, you look at images, you watch the videos, and you still have to do that same thing. And I think what makes it all so interesting is because I've seen every single element of my degree worked into everything that I've written here. Like without my law degree, I don't think I would have been able to write about, you know, the affirmative consent bill or the Taliban or vaccines in a way that was, you know, appropriate through a legal lens. I wouldn't have been able to write about those things without the lens of history as well. And art history and art criticism is so inextricably intertwined with this idea of fashion criticism that I couldn't really do the work I do without that. And I think I'm so grateful that I dabbled in those areas and things that didn't seem directly connected to the industry that I am in now. But at the end of the day, and I love harping on about this to my brother and to anyone who is kind of unsure about what they'll do, is when you come to an industry, it's about what else you can offer. I mean, of course, it is about how good you are at that job, which is writing and being factual and being accurate and being thorough. But it's also about how you can make it personal. What else do you have to offer that someone else might not be able to bring to the table? And you need to tap into those niches. You know, if I am really passionate about like Hatshepsut and like ancient Egypt, how can I work that into a particular essay?
Yeah.
Those perspectives that always make me pause when I'm reading a piece of writing. And when I see the author so vividly, that's what makes me come back time and time again.
Yeah, I think that you kind of put that so beautifully, the way that it all kind of marries up into what you're pursuing. And I guess it's kind of like I love saying like divine timing thing. Like I think it just all worked really well for you. So I mean, you're a content editor now, which is incredible.
Yeah.
What does this role actually involve? Because you know it's a big title. And yeah, what do you actually get to do with this?
Yeah, in short, I almost just get to do as much as I set my boundaries to, which is really good. So at the moment, my role is quite broad. So at a base level, what I do is I write a lot and I pitch ideas a lot, and then I have to kind of execute those ideas and then write. And it's a constant process of an exhausting but exhilarating process of thinking about new ideas and then writing those ideas and then thinking and then writing. And every day I pitch my ideas to the team discusses them. I publish them and then we move on. But then there are other kind of bits and bobs to the role that have been mixed in, or roles that I've kind of taken on. So we definitely approached the divide between digital and print with much more flexibility, that we really see that there's a synergy between those two styles of content.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love art. I'm obsessed with art. So I do write a lot of art criticism pieces for print. So a lot of our content editors contribute to print, and a lot of our print editors contribute to digital, and vice versa, which I really love. And I do a lot of the bridal content also on Vogue, write up a lot of weddings. And I think all of the content editors, we have, our own particular strengths and areas of interest. So unofficially, we settle into those as well. So I think over the last year or so, I've really figured out what I love writing about, and I'll maybe pitch ideas more in that vein. I love writing fashion reviews. I love writing about culture and film. I love writing about art. I love harping on about, whatever random feminist theory I've come across that day. So like those are the areas that I'll dabble in. But, for example, my colleague Charlie is like an NBA fanatic. He's an expert, sports dude, loves film, and like that's what he writes about as well. And Divya, who is another content editor who I am absolutely obsessed with, is just like a rabid reader, and she loves contemporary fiction, and like that's her area of specialty, as well as fashion and a whole bunch of other things. She's amazing. So yeah, it's super broad. It's just wherever you draw the line. I think that I've kind of come into this job with the idea of wanting to do everything and putting my hand up for things and just forging my own path and seeing where it takes you, and not seeing my title or like my professional label as any restriction or any kind of square in which I can work within. It's always, well, what else can I do? What else? What hole is there here? Who isn't taking care of this? What area here can be developed or extended in some kind of way, and how can I take initiative?
For sure. And I'm quite interested to know, because you've spoken obviously about some of your incredible peers that you're working with and your colleagues. How do you feel that they have kind of shaped you as a writer, as an individual? Because I definitely think that the people that you work around and the kind of communal experience really influences, I guess, your growth as an individual and in terms of your career. So I'd love to hear how you feel that that's shaped you.
Oh my gosh, they have shaped me immeasurably. I would not be the writer that I am today without the amazing people that I work with every day. They are by far, hands down, the best thing about my job. I know people hate when people use this phrase, but they are my family. Like, I know that there's so much controversy about whether you should view your colleagues as your family, but genuinely, they, even if they're not my family, they are just the best of friends, and also like my inspiration every single day. I take different things from them. From our digital lead Francesca, she kind of has this posture and so much eloquence and so much kind of diplomacy that I've taken cues from her about how to speak to people and how to conduct myself in an office and how to lead. And with Divya and Charlie and Jonah and Nikki and Anna and all of these other people around me, like the way that they view the world with so much kindness and so much generosity, the way that we're always reading each other's work, the way that we're always editing each other's work and talking about ideas and bouncing things off of each other, it just kind of reminds me of this little collective. It's almost like we're a bunch of writers in like 1920s Paris, and we hold ourselves up in this random apartment, and we're just chatting about life and being flaneurs and observing the world around us. And it's so lovely. I think that idea of really healthy constructive criticism, in a way that's really with the pure intent of helping each other become better writers, also makes us better people. Like, I kind of came into this job as, really anyone with their first full-time job with so much nervousness, so much anxiety, and this desire to, you come in with a desire to prove yourself, but you also worry that you're not good enough, and you have, you have crippling imposter syndrome, and you have to work through that. And it's not like those things go away. You're going to have days where you doubt your ability to do things. You're going to have days where you have writer's block and you stare at your screen and it's completely blank, and your cursor is kind of like flashing, and you're like, gosh, what do I do? Am I a real writer?
Yeah.
And then you have all of these people who are able to support you and remind you that you're here because you've worked your way here.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling up for it, they're there to help you. So I owe everything to them. They're amazing. I love them. I couldn't say anything like that isn't completely praiseworthy of them.
100%. And I think that makes all the difference as well with a kind of career that you pursue or a job that you're in. I think the people around you and the experience in that respect is also a really big factor on whether I think it's right for you, a right fit. Like if you feel included and if you feel inspired and you feel energized by the experience, I think that's when it's a really positive thing. But I'm sure you've probably experienced roles where that kind of feeling hasn't been there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think workplace culture and even the culture of a cohort when you're at university is really important to how you feel about that degree or that particular discipline. I've definitely been in workplaces where that culture hasn't been there. It hasn't felt right.
Yeah.
And I've kind of clung on to it because I thought, no, this particular field is really what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Even though these people are maybe not my type of people. And that's totally okay. But I think it took me a while to learn that everything is really important. There needs to be synergy in all aspects, and you shouldn't feel like you have to make a compromise or sacrifice anything by way of that.
Yeah.
I personally love going into an office where everyone feels so warm and friendly, and like I could cry on their shoulder one time and just like go on some kind of manic bender with them the next. But it's about what you want out of your job. I think maybe not everyone wants that as well. Some people just want to go into work, clock off at 5, and have that kind of energy with their friends. So it's about being really clear about what you want out of your office space. For me, I love going into a space where we can just be crazy together, and then I can also be crazy with my friends outside of work.
Yeah.
But a lot more people have that clear delineation of personal and professional. For me, I just like when it's blurred, but that's a personal thing as well.
Yeah, maybe now that you said that, I'm thinking maybe that might just be a personal thing for me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely some people that like that separation, and I think that's totally fair as well. It's definitely just figuring out what's best for you and what you enjoy. So looking forward, are you planning on continuing down the Vogue path you seem to be paving out for yourself, or are you looking to branch out and pursue other areas of interest, or both?
Yeah. Probably both at the moment. I love it at Vogue. I love writing the pieces that I do. I feel like it's an immense privilege to be working there. But I also have just like plenty of other interests that I don't want to close myself off from pursuing. I still, at one point in my life, want to write a book. So at some point I'll have to settle down and think about writing my first probably terrible novel, and then I'll write another terrible novel and see where that takes me. I love teaching as well, love kids. So I've kind of always had this idea that I'll go back to uni and maybe get a master's in education and become a teacher at some point in my life. But again, that's also up in the air. I flirted with the idea of getting a PhD overseas, but it's super open. I feel like, if anything, the last 2 years has really taught me to focus on the present and really do what feels right in the moment. And I was someone who used to be a chronic overthinker and have a really amount of foresight that was paralytic and not in a way that was helpful at all. So much so that I was living in the hypotheticals of my life rather than what I actually had. And I think, over the last 2 years, I've really seen the value in, this is what I love doing, grounding myself in my present passion grounding myself in the direction that I want to set for myself and thinking, I love my job at the moment. Maybe I'll do this on the side and then I'll see where it takes me, and not putting so much pressure on, I have to do this by 27. I have to do this by 30. I have to do this by 40. Because I think setting that kind of precedent for yourself and seeing your life work out in that way, I think really prohibits growth. It prohibits that flexibility that I think is so necessary to living a fulfilling life and kind of enjoying the present moment, being with your friends, and also allowing yourself to make mistakes. You can only grow if you're uncomfortable, and you can only grow if you do things that maybe in hindsight you shouldn't have done. And it's about taking that risk. It's about doing things that feel right, even if maybe they don't work out. It's about taking care of yourself and moving into the future, wherever that takes you.
I agree. And I think something that I love about this podcast and getting to chat to people like yourself, I've had so many different guests on, and I felt like speaking to people with so many different career backgrounds and so many different stories where they've kind of jumped so many different places with their careers or their degrees and whatnot. I think it really gave me a lot more clarity on, I guess, being comfortable with the uncomfortable and being comfortable with not knowing what I want to do. And I guess like it's weird to vocalize to people because, I still get those questions of like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I feel a lot more comfortable saying, I don't know. I don't know yet. And I love that because it's definitely a big jump and a big shift from where I was last year. And
yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, like life is messy. I think, if anything, you can just, if something that reading has taught me is people have not known what to do with themselves for millennia. We, as humans, we question, and we've been cursed with the gift of sentient thought and over analysis. And you, especially like at the age that you're at, not that there's any age where you're required to know exactly what's going on, but especially with your youth, what is happening in the world? The world is such a big, vast, amazing, terrifying place. And the very fact that you're existing now, that you're talking to people, that you're kind of approaching the world with this inquisitive eye, and really being honest with yourself that maybe I don't know what I want to do, but I am passionate about this, and I do love doing this, and these are my friends, and these are my hobbies. That is such a huge thing. That's so much harder to do than a lot of people realize. And it's about being kind to yourself as well. Don't feel like you have to have everything sorted at any age. I think that when I was younger, and definitely even now, I have this idea that I'm running out of time. And when I think about it, I just go, what am I running out of time to do?
So true.
What like, why do I feel like I'm so close to my deathbed? And I think
at the ripe age of 23.
At the ripe age of 23, I feel like I've run out of all the time to do anything that I've ever wanted. And it is that idea of feeling like you have all of these milestones that you have to tick in order to become a successful adult, or even feel like an adult at all. And it's hard to be an adult in this economy, in a post-pandemic world where inflation is rising, where cabbage costs like $50.
Literally,
it's difficult. So just take it at your own pace. Everyone is taking it at their own pace, and as morbid as it sounds, no one really knows what they're doing. And I kind of tell myself that everyone is just figuring out for themselves, and the way that you're feeling now, everyone on earth very likely feels that way, and everyone who has lived before you and who will come after you will also feel that way. And the beauty of us is that we continue to try to find meaning and make meaning in our own lives.
And I think just being open to experiences and open to life, honestly, I think is a great way to kind of just to go about things. And I think there shouldn't be pressure to find that meaning. It should just be a process of enjoying the journey. I think like enjoying the journey of finding that meaning, even if it doesn't exist. I think there's a lot of beauty in that. for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
So, now I guess we'll take a little look back at young teenage Gladys, and I would love to find out, what advice you would love to give her about anything really. I guess it's a very broad question, and I'm not sure
Mm.
exactly what she was like. I never got to meet her, but I'm sure you know her probably better than anyone. So I'd love to hear advice that you'd love to tell your younger self, because I think it would be
Yeah,
applicable to any young person out there.
yeah. I think when I think about this, I don't know if my younger self has ever left me. I think she still lives somewhere in
Yeah.
me, and she still pipes up, you know. And I think I'm not sure if that's the same for everyone. My younger self was very unsure of herself, very scared, very anxious, very keen to make an impact and carve out her own legacy and do something very big with her life. And I'm not sure if those desires have ever left. I'm sure that those desires are very human and very
Mhm.
universal.
Yeah.
And to some extent, she's still there. She's still with me. But she's with me with all of those other selves that I've had and that I've lived with over the
Mhm.
years, who are able to talk to her and able to calm her down a little. When she's telling me, for example, that there is not enough time, I tell her I'm still very young. I'm figuring things out.
Yeah.
Maybe cut me some slack. And I think above all, trusting the process, when things are hard, things got very hard for young Gladys and things still get very hard for present Gladys.
Yeah.
But when things get hard, it's about really digging in your heels, believing in that strength, thinking about all the other things that you've overcome, thinking about all the things that you will overcome. Life is so difficult. Life is full of so much pain and failure and so much unfulfilled desire. But it's about that certainty that you carry with you about yourself, the person that you are, the things that you have achieved, the relationships that you have. Everything comes from within you. So trusting in yourself, as cliche as that sounds, it's true. And I don't think young Gladys did. And sometimes present Gladys still doesn't. And I
Mhm.
really have to give myself that pep talk of being your own best friend. The things that young Gladys would tell herself are not things that she would tell a best friend if a best friend came to her with those concerns
Yeah,
and those worries.
definitely. I think that's some great advice, and definitely applicable to anyone, because I think, as you said, that unsureness and that confusion, I guess, at that young stage is so universal and
Mm,
something that will still plague you. I think even as you grow, I don't think anyone's completely 100% sure of anything.
yeah, yeah,
They'll act like it, and I think it's important sometimes to fake it till you make it, but
yeah.
but yeah, definitely. But yeah, more generally, do you have any advice that you would share to young people that are interested in venturing down the same paths as yourself, whether that's
Yeah.
just figuring out what they want to do with their arts law degree or any degree, or if it's moving into something like editing for Vogue, or writing for a media company like that? I'd love to hear your advice.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it kind of has echoes of just the areas that we touched upon earlier with this idea
For
of
sure.
really, again, trying not to be swayed if there is a particular, line of conversation or a particular presumption that you're going to go into this area because you're in this degree. I think, first of all, approaching your degree with the knowledge that maybe this degree won't take you where you think it will.
Yeah.
And just knowing that there is always an element of uncertainty and really embracing that, not seeing that as something that is scary, but something that is exciting
Mhm.
and something that will open up many, many doors from which you can choose to enter is really important. Um, Knowing that if you feel like you're the only one who wants to do a certain thing, especially if you're in a creative field where I think you're much more likely to feel that way, in a society that maybe devalues arts degrees and
Yeah.
attaches a certain stigma to them. If you feel like you're the only one who wants to do that, then there's also no problem with feeling like you're the only one who wants to do that. because you know that you want to do that, at the end of the day. That's the only certainty that matters, is that you know that this isn't right for you and this is. So trusting again that following that passion will lead you where you need to be. I think also not being too hard on yourself if you do make the decision to do something that you feel is safer. I think that is a reality that a lot of people do have to grapple with, and a lot of people do enter into arts law degrees, maybe find a lot more enjoyment in, say, studying, Simone de Beauvoir than looking at the intricacies of like taxation. But maybe at the end of the day, they make a decision, they weigh up all of the pros and the cons, and they think, I don't know, maybe I'll just become a tax lawyer, and they just do that. If you choose to do that, don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel like you're giving up a part of yourself, or feeling like you're maybe like not brave enough to pursue that passion. That's definitely not the narrative there. I don't really believe in, oh my gosh, it's that like awful scene in Where the Millers where he says like no regrets or something. I don't believe in regret. Genuinely, I don't believe in regret, and genuinely I don't believe in really making bad decisions on a general level. I think whatever decision you make is something that you made with full knowledge, with your full volition. You weighed up all the consequences, and this is the decision that you thought was best for you at the time. And what makes it the right or the wrong decision is what you do after that. Like when you decide to become a lawyer, or when you decide to become an artist, or when you decide to become a writer or an engineer or a doctor or anything, what can you do in the aftermath of that to make that the best decision possible? Like, what do you do to commit to that? And then if you change your mind, you can change your mind later. But what do you do after that to make sure that you felt like you were doing right by yourself? So don't feel guilty if you make a decision that maybe other people would frown upon or condescend upon either.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think it's super important to back yourself in whatever you pursue, and not having regrets, as you said. I think the regret just is I don't know, it will just burden you for the rest of your time if you're constantly sitting and dwelling in what could have been, or the that kind of thing. I think it's important to kind of view how that maybe decision can affect the way that you view things moving forward. And I think how that influences and affects the way that you move forward is the most important way to go about things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think what the narrative of what could have been, it doesn't mean that it won't be.
Yeah.
Like those futures and those possibilities aren't closed off to you because of one decision that you made. They're still there. They still exist because you still exist. You can do whatever you want to make those a reality. And if you feel propelled to make those realities yours, then you can go and do that. It doesn't ever stop
at one point. Yeah Definitely. I think it's constantly an ongoing process of figuring out and then what you want to do and where you want to go with things. This has been so incredible speaking with you, Gladys. Thank you so much for joining me. I've had an incredible time, and I'm sure that everyone watching has equally, found something interesting or something they can take away from this. So thank you so much again for joining me, and I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as well. And yeah, everyone, I will link all of Gladys's everything in the description of this episode. And if you want to check out any of her articles, go and read some Vogue articles, super exciting things. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a lovely conversation.